You're listening to She's Got Drive podcast, the podcast that inspires women to be the driver in their own life for the life and stories of Black women with drive. And I'm your host, Shirley McAlpine. I'm a business consultant and executive coach and a leadership facilitator working with people and organizations to live their lives by design and not default. Welcome back to another episode of She's Got Drive. And this episode is part 2 of the Lesley Williams episode. Because that interview that I did live at the Eaton Workshop Hotel that was put out on Facebook Live that night was actually quite long. So I decided to split it into 2 episodes. So here we are with part 2. Remember, Lesley was chosen as one of the Obama leaders, the first cohort of the Obama African leaders. She was also invited to facilitate a conversation called the Mandela Forum, which is to kind of look at Mandela's legacy, where she interviewed and facilitated conversation with Barack Obama, President Obama as well. And she is from Johannesburg, has over 19 years of experience in designing ecosystems and networks, and she is CEO of Tshimologong Precinct at Wits University initiative, which is all about the skills development for employability and entrepreneurship in the digital economy. She was such an inspiring conversation. So I'm excited about having you hear the other half of that interview. But before we do that, before I hand you back over to our conversation with Lesley, I am going to share with you what's driving me this week. Now, each week, or every other week, I'm kind of sharing with you my next iteration of my self-care plan. Self-care is more than just Sunday. And so remember, I added massage to my self-care, and I feel like that's kind of now a practice. I've now have it in my schedule, and it's happening, and I'm feeling the benefits of that. So over the last week, what I took on was my food and addressing what I'm eating and getting myself back into eating well. And so now I'm following slow carb diet, really, or approach to eating, I'd rather say, rather than diet. And it's come out of my husband reading the book, The 4-Hour Body, the Tim Ferriss book, getting inspired by introducing something that's simple and that's doable and that is manageable and that you can stay on track wherever you are, because my traveling has really challenged me around my eating. In just that you don't always have food when you want it. You don't always get the food that you really want to eat. And if you're on the go, in airports, it is really hard to find good quality, healthy options. But this is something that I can do when I'm traveling. This is something that I can do. And I've been doing it I'm at day 5. In truth, it feels fine. And it's already having an impact. So I'll keep you posted on that. So I'm gradually adding things in. If I try to do it all at once, remember, and this is a strategy, if you try and make change in an area of your life and do a number of things all at once, what's likely is going to go into overwhelm, and then you're going to stop. So the reason why I'm sharing this with you is I'm sharing with you how I'm introducing new practices in my life, so that if you are someone who struggles to do that, you can see, oh, that's one way I can do it. You take an activity, you start to introduce it. When you feel like it's kind of getting ingrained and more embedded, usually around 3-week mark, then you bring in the next activity. So the massage is embedded 6 weeks, 3 times. I'm now going to go to around once a month. And that's embedded now. I'm already feeling the effects. So now I'm addressing my food. I'll do that. And then in earnest, then I'll address my exercise. I think I'm going to start doing it before that. But in earnest, I'll address my exercise once I feel like I've established my pattern around my food and my practice around my food, and seeing the effects of that. So that's what's been driving me this week. It is so necessary because I'm traveling literally every week right now, and it is taking its toll. And so the other thing that I need to focus on is sleep. So, but how you building new practices is you take one at a time and you keep entering it in, allow it to get ingrained, and then move on to the next thing. So I'll keep you posted. That's what's been driving me this week. So let's pick up the interview with Lesley. And at the end of part 1, we had just started talking about self-care, and Lesley was sharing about the responsibility that people in her community and herself has to, when you're earning money, to look after the broader family in South Africa. And so the ability to earn enough money to take care of your needs and take care of your family's needs is part of what gives her peace of mind and self-care. And so that kind of started us expanding out into a conversation of the impact that responsibility has outside of us. Let's hand over to Lesley. That commitment is so hidden, like what you're speaking about. So when we're having conversations about entrepreneurship and stepping out and taking the commitment to family is like a hidden commitment.
Yeah.
That's not even seen or acknowledged.
Yeah.
That can get in the way of, as you say, of people really taking this on.
Totally. So when you look at some of these big awards, and I think in the social entrepreneurial space, be it like your Ashoka or Skoll or many of these large ones, you'll often see from Africa, like it's often like white females who are winning these awards. And I've been challenging that system for a while. Because often people who are stepping out and taking this risk are supported by family money, or the fact that they had the time to save from their well-paying corporate jobs in order to take the risk.
Right.
Whereas even when many of us have had well-paying jobs, we couldn't save as much because we're supporting our families.
Right.
Or we can't save now. The heart for social change is there, and we may volunteer or support other change agents that are it's unseen, because we need to be in our jobs. We can't be in the forefront.
Right.
It does not mean that as a black person you're not giving a black female, and you may not have the title, the prestigious title of social entrepreneur, and it's sad that it's becoming prestigious. It should not be elitist. We assume people aren't contributing.
Yeah.
It just looks differently, or it's like you say, it's the forms of giving are hidden.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to we've kind of dipped into the family space with that. I'm curious about if you look at your success and how you've got to be where you are, what are the lessons from your family that has helped you?
Sure. So plenty. And think of various individuals. So from my mom, I learned how to be a good host. So she basically had this principle that when you have a guest coming over and you say, make yourself at home. Making yourself at home does not mean that your guest sits in the lounge isolated while you're in the kitchen cooking.
Right.
Bring your guest in, have them chop up, maybe not an onion, but a carrot.
Yeah.
Involve them, get them to participate.
Right.
So I took that practice with me in terms of being a host and a process facilitator. From my grandparents, I took be involved in society. My grandfather had the assumption, raised us with the assumption that we will be public speakers. At some point, we need to show our view publicly. So we would train at home to speak publicly.
Wow.
We would also be challenged to think about where and how we're contributing to change within our community. My grandmother would take us along to church bazaars to sell clothing that would then be donation money for the community. So those principles of being involved in society, being active, being conscious, and making your view heard, I learned at home. And then my brother, because my brother is slightly older than me, and he allowed me the space to be an entrepreneur by taking on the financial burden of supporting other family needs, including my own.
Wow. So it's been huge, the contribution.
Yeah, so it's very communal. And I think, for me, spending time, I spend a lot of time in Western worlds, if you like, and I like it.
Right.
I get a buzz. There's a different side of me that flourishes in this world. But I often feel unnerved by the sense of individuality and loneliness, isolation. I see a lot of broken people walking around, and we also have brokenness at home.
Right.
But there's opportunities for healing at home because we work in community.
Yeah, yeah. You can see how that. I don't know what to say about that.
It's no judgment. Just
just an assessment. Yeah, you just kind of like an view, an assessment of kind of. And so then, if you kind of to build on the sources of your success and the family and the support, right here, the support. If the support usually allows us to take on big challenges and so on. If you think about the challenges that you've taken on, what would you say has been the biggest challenge?
Again, going back to youth and fast tracking to the future. So I would say my mother pioneered divorce in my community, which was like really
never happened before.
Like she was one of the first explicitly divorced. It was very kind of community public, and she was the first child. Like my grandparents had 10 children, and and they like very kind of church builders, like very kind of public facing sort of family. And I was the offspring of a black sheep. Right. So that was painful. It was challenging, but at the same time, my mother role models tipping out of the norm, standing out, doing what she needed to and what she felt was needed for her children to thrive. Right. So I think, for me, in points of discomfort, even when I often go against the grain, and it's often painful, it's painful having a different view and different voice from the whole. But that's also taught me to stand in the fire, regardless of the consequences and potential isolation. But I stand up for something if I believe in it, or if I don't believe in it, I'll have my view heard. And it's often very lonely doing that, going against the grain. Right. So I think, like for me, that is often very, very challenging. Finance is always challenging, So, like I said, post-apartheid South Africa, many of us do not have strong financial resources. So, when creating movements of change or wanting to take a risk on something that hasn't been tested in the market, when you do not have the capital, or even the social capital, financial or social capital, that can bring resources or broker financial deals for you, it's a higher risk. Right. So thank goodness in my 20s I sold my car and I used that money to move to the UK. It wasn't a fancy car, it was a little Toyota Taz. And I went from doing very cool projects with the First Lady of the country, Mrs. Mbeki at the time, Sanele Mbeki, to waitressing in the UK. And I had this chuckle when someone treated me crap at some race course, and I laughed at myself. I was like, 3 years ago you were dining with the First Lady on a Saturday for brunch. What on earth are you doing here? Right. But it was good for me to experience living in different worlds, and I think that brings for me both a sense of humility, but it's also taught me to be content regardless of circumstances. Forgot your question, but somehow I went there.
Yeah, it was great. I'm happy to roll with it. The question was around accomplished. Was it the biggest company? I can't remember my question either. Yeah, imagine that. Shall I tell you where I got stuck? I got stuck on the First Lady and working with the First Lady. That's not emerged in our conversation. So I'm kind of curious about how did you get to work with her and why, and what did you tell us more about?
Sure. So maybe I should take a few steps back in my career. So I was initially part of number one, the thread that runs throughout my career is that I believe that everyone has the right to live their full potential regardless of the life that they were born into. Right. Whether you're from rural Namakwaland, which is somewhere in South Africa, to San Francisco, it's a human right finish, full stop. So all the work I do and I find myself in is to progress that mission.
Okay.
A couple of months ago, I also found the mission statement that I wrote when I was 12 years old. I also have my mission statement I wrote when I was 22 years old. And, again, it's a common grain around being myself regardless of the spaces and places I find myself in.
What did you say at 12, though? How was it phrased at 12? Do you remember?
Gosh, I have it on my Instagram account. I can look it up.
Yeah, I'm curious.
There was the frivolous things like I will have a car and a beach house. Which,
of course.
I don't have a beach house. So if anyone wants to gift me that, I'm open.
Do you have a car?
I've learned, yes, so that. And I would be living with my cousin Bronwyn. I don't think either of us would want to live with each other now as much as we love each other. I'm
amazed that you still got your mission statement from 12 years old.
I found it. There you go.
So what does it say?
Sorry, it was when I was 10 years old.
10.
Mission.
Actually, just writing a mission statement at 10 is pretty impressive.
This is hilarious. In 10 years from now, I see the handwriting. I see myself as a successful fashion designer that makes about 48,000 Rand a year. Thank goodness I earned more than that because I would not survive on 48,000. I'll be living in a big double-story with 4 of the latest luxury cars.
Wow.
I will not be married yet, but living with my cousin Bronwyn. Every Christmas holiday, I will either go to my beach house in Port Elizabeth or fly overseas.
That is quite a vision for a 10-year-old.
So I think,
right?
Yeah. But I think, for me, the lesson in there, and being, I consider myself to be a Pan-African globalist.
Mm-hmm.
So even though I hadn't traveled far or anywhere, I couldn't imagine what I would have been doing with my life now, but the seed was somehow planted that I will be a world traveler, ready by the age of 10 years old.
Yeah.
And that was also part of the intention I even set for myself when I was 14 years old, and in a time when we did not know what was for dinner, post-parents' divorce.
Wow.
Really, really hard times. But I read often, I reflected often, and, so there was always a sense of planting a vision, and moving towards it. That was instilled in me from a young age. I also read a lot, so I would consume literature. So many years before I actually started traveling, people assumed I traveled. I was just living in my head and living through books.
Because of what you talked about when you were reading. That's amazing. The power of us visioning our life is what I hear and what you're speaking about, and sharing cannot be underestimated. And that's whether we're 10 years old or we're 50 years old, or 40 years old, or our ability to really see what our life could be and we want it to be, and then we can start to take the action to kind of manifest and make it. Is what it is.
And I think this is something where all of us should and need to adopt. So if I look at a lot of the messaging, I've been listening to a lot of speeches from both Barack Obama and Nelson Mandela, and this message of hope. This message of living according to your purpose, or living based on an ideal or set of principles you set to yourself. Imagine if all of us carried some form of essence, not necessarily replicating what their ideals are for better world, but just like having it in our imagination. I do believe that at a global level we can start shifting the current vibration of the world.
Right. If we also, for me, if I stand in the place that everyone has it, they haven't always seen it. And that it's about being in environments or going through some journey to get access to what that is, rather than it's not there. Do you know what I mean? Like the essence is there, but can I see it? And if I saw it, I think once you see it, it's really compelling. And then can I trust what I'm seeing? So that if I can trust what I'm seeing, then I can step into it.
And I think quite often we have clutter blurring our vision. You know, so I can't remember, I hope some family member doesn't crucify me if my grandfather ever said this to him, but it was a one-on-one dialogue. But he basically said something to the fact that if you want to keep someone in a pit, you have to be there yourself to keep them down there.
Oh, yes.
So you inhibiting your own ability to grow and move on. And, you know, so I think, you know...
That's good, isn't it? The Shirley look. It was just like, that was good. If you want to keep someone in a pit, what do you think? You have to keep yourself down there in order to keep... Say it the way...
them there. And I know I'm not...
I know, but you said it more eloquently than I've tried to repeat it, but I'm trying to...
And it speaks to enemies, if you like. So if you have someone you don't like to have an enemy,
don't spend time
keep them
with them
down, to keep them to even take revenge. In order to push them or keep them in a pit, you too need to stay there to keep them there.
Right.
To inhibit their growth, you need to make sure that you're inhibiting them properly.
Right. And you're
right.
You keep yourself right in the pit.
Exactly.
That's good. So yeah. I mean, there's nothing. That's so clear.
So I mean, if you focus on things that don't bring you joy or revenge or, you know, just, it's sometimes a distraction around your own growth. So if you're looking at a vision for yourself or vision for your family or vision for your community, it's quite aspirational.
Yeah,
it's forward-looking. So like, what do you need to let go of, and like, what is the clutter, the points of destruction that's inhibiting your own growth?
Right.
To move towards that.
Right.
And, you know, quite often in a revenge-seeking world, we forget that it's actually causing, again, self-harm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Being in that state of mind.
Because when you're in this, it's one of the things that I love about when I'm working with people around their vision or when I'm thinking about my own, it's just so enlivening, isn't it? It kind of brings you up and out. And that's what that experience of when you're present to it is the thing that keeps you moving when you are like, when life is challenging, when life is hard, when things are being thrown at you, when you're tired, when you're worn out, when you're whatever it is. Or the thing that when you take risks, you know, and you're making choices and you sometimes think, I don't know why I'm making this choice. It doesn't seem like a good idea, but I'm going with it anyway because it's inside of the vision for myself that it's having me make that choice, even though it doesn't seem like a really smart thing to do in the moment, you know.
With all the uncertainty.
Yes. But the thing about, in the space of uncertainty, I mean, I want to say this, in the space of uncertainty comes real opportunities for breakthrough and possibility. And I don't want to be Pollyanna about it, because I also know that people live in uncertainty too, you know. When you don't, as you speak to, when you don't know when the next meal's coming from, that's a space of uncertainty too. So it's not, I don't say it lightly in terms of that, but even from those places to see and vision somewhere else, like a place like a future that you can step into is needed and powerful.
Yeah. I mean, like I said earlier, my immediate family circumstances, and my mother, brother, and I, we were at the rough end of the socioeconomic spectrum when I was envisioning a different world. You know, but I always also think, like, even in those moments, you have choice.
Yeah.
I know it's very Viktor Frankl. And I do like it. Look it up if you don't know who Viktor Frankl is. But we often make excuses for our inability to grow. You know, we often think it's for other people, and we often seek external validation in order to do that. It's very rare when someone's going to validate you and your thoughts. So it initially takes courage to step forward without validation, without affirmation. But in doing it, you gather supporters around you, and there is momentum in that moment, in the action. And I don't think it's for a privileged few out there, no matter how rough things are. I know too many amazing stories. We have an entrepreneur in our space. Love his work, Umpo. Paul couldn't afford to complete his studies as an engineer. He dropped out. He's from a rural community, and but he loves making things. He loves inventing. So he started making robots from electronic waste that he'd find in garbage, and cardboard paper.
Wow.
He has robotic arms and all sorts of amazing inventions that work. Someone then tagged me and a few others at my work because they saw him selling his goods at the market. Now he's in our makerspace. He's thriving. We hire him and we pay him when we're doing exhibitions and other things. But he's contributing so much to the community.
Right.
So, we brought him into support, like we've taught him 3D printing, but we have an exchange. And like I say, even in his most dire moment, he found a practical way to support himself and now as a community.
Yeah.
But he didn't stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have tons of those stories.
I'm mindful that, can I come back to the First Lady? Because I realised that we got off track.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Yes,
and
yes.
Because I love these stories, but I'm just hold on a minute. We forgot about First Lady. What are we doing? So how did you get to work with her? And
Sure. So as a student, I was part of this international network called ISEC. And ISEC also is a global network. It deals with exchange. So you can go off and work in another country and plow back into your own neighborhood, and it teaches sensitivity and consciousness around other cultures. So I've always been part of building it, either being in networks or building networks. And I've never had an actual, I've never actually really needed to look for work as a result of all of these networks. So I got headhunted out of...
It's so good. So even that, like just knowing that, if you're interested in, like, to start getting yourself into powerful networks.
Yeah.
Or networks.
Or even like as a student,
right.
You're passionate about something, start a club.
Yeah.
Like,
and that allows
that's the first.
so much.
Rolls over, and your fellow students are either your future boss, your future employee, your future business partner. Like, it's all relationship.
Right.
So I got invited from ISEC to join a business school in its startup phase. And now it's Gordon Institute of Business Science, and it's basically one of the leading business schools now in Africa. And the founder was also an ISEC alumni. 7 of us were ISEC alumni who worked at the business school. From ISEC, I was invited into Pioneers of Change, which was alumni.
Right.
Many initial Impact Hub founders are from ISEC as well. And the art of hosting community, many of us were from ISEC.
Okay.
So again, that moment of building and sustaining networks. And working in ISEC, at some point, I ended up having as my boss the former governor of the Reserve Bank, Jill Marcus, ended up being my boss. And she later went back into politics. But in that season, she was also inviting me to many of the events that she was going to. And in the time working at the business school and still being involved in ISEC, Pioneers of Change, all of these networks, I was then invited to join the South African Women in Dialogue, the National Steering Committee. But I was on the young side, young South African women, Women in Dialogue. And we needed to put a national conference together, inviting women from all walks of life across the country for a week-long conference. But being part of the steering committee, I got to every single week meet with these amazing dynamic women, including the First Lady, and we put together this awesome conference. And this was around 2005, where I also interviewed her for an article that I wrote.
Wow.
And I'm still in contact. In fact, I have a hello, Mrs. Simbeki. I'm on my phone. Don't steal my phone. But yeah, so I mean, I have these amazing women in the country who created large impact on the continent, who've become mothers to me, and they've adopted me like a lot of political leaders. So I am lucky that from a young, lucky because I've also put in the work.
Yeah.
Of showing intention. And people met me there and took me to the next step.
Right. I love what you're saying there, because it's the intention, and you said throwing intention, then people met me there. So there's the luck or magic comes with intention and action.
Yeah.
It's not just I just got lucky.
Yeah.
Right. So it's intention and action, and then the luck, or I call it magic. The magic happens in that space.
Which takes it to the next round. So even though I don't know fully what is my next step of my journey, I know which ingredients I want, and I know that in movement there is this global community. I've got this global village of people who want to support me. And even just like running into Martha yesterday, you know, like she didn't know, but I've been reflecting on some work we did together in London in 2007. In fact,
really,
opportunity that she invited me into then, like 2007, 2008.
Right.
It's more than a decade later.
Yeah.
You know, it comes full circle.
Yeah. And
who knows what this gathering could
exactly. You know, because it just so happens you were in DC at the same time that we're in DC, and Martha's not even, she's like from London and blah blah blah, like, and it's just like we come together, and who knows what this can be. Well, I'm ready. There's already a B, right, and just here, and so it's a sign. I'm conscious of the time because we've only got to a few minutes, and one thing that I am asking, there's a couple of questions that I'd like to ask you. One thing I'm asking my guests is around courage, around courageous moments, and that is a belief that courage comes from an action that we take on behalf of ourselves or on behalf of others, and it's a heartfelt movement. And so I'm curious about, you know, moments in your life where you might have taken an action that was really either on behalf of you or on behalf of others. That's a really courageous moment for you.
Sure. So I think I've done so much with fear, you know, like out of fear, you know. So in early 2010, my buddies, I had a few friends who told me that they're going to write me off if I don't launch Impact Hub. They were so tired of hearing about this thing, and I was just scared. I didn't have the finances, but I was also just scared. And I think like what I learned in that moment, because I ended up launching it, but like fear is there, fear will remain, fear is often by your side. But in acting with fear, then your good friend courage also shows up to take the race with you.
Right.
So like acknowledge fear, hi fear, I see you fear, yes fear is there, acting anyway, and then courage shows up in the moment. So I've had many of those instances. What was really tough for me was in 2015, we had crazy xenophobic attacks in South Africa that kind of spread nationally. And I couldn't sleep. I was like praying about it, like just reflecting, and it just totally shook me. And so around like 3 a.m. I still could not speak. It basically came to me that I should put a Facebook post, you know. So I posted on Facebook like, this is crazy. Something needs to be done. Who's with me? So I fell asleep, had a deep sleep, woke up the next morning. There were about 50 comments on my page, and a bunch of us started chatting in a group. But the next day, we decided to host a dialogue at Impact Hub, and about 100 people showed up. The movement I Am Africa was born.
Wow.
And by seeing so many people showed up in the moment where I was supposed to step up and facilitate, I just couldn't. I just broke down crying, and I was just inconsolable. So somebody who I had just met stepped forward and decided to host the evening or host the dialogue, and we went into the action groups. But over the next few months, corporates brought finance. We had no entity to host this. You know, Impact Hub was holding it, but people showed up with all sorts of gifts and wanted to be involved in some way. We started running national dialogues around xenophobia for corporates and universities, training people basic skills on how to host dialogues. But all of that was in fear and uncertainty. There was fear around the lives of those affected. You know, just going into some of those camps and seeing the conditions people were living in, knowing that, feeling like I have nothing to offer.
Right.
But I think people just feeling heard brought something. And in that moment, I needed to act because it wasn't about me. I don't think it was an act of courage, but I had no choice to get involved. And a lot kind of showed up, you know. So it wasn't about courage, it wasn't about all of these things, but it's about acting anyway, even if you're not 100% clear about what, like, even if there will be a solution that emerges from this.
Yeah, it just feel like the action was the thing that was the driver.
Yeah.
Do something.
Yeah, and I remember just a bunch of, at some point, families were being split. Someone's mother got pulled into a police van while the kid was being pulled, somewhere else. And I don't know what happened on the other side of that, but there was this moment, and I was super annoyed that week because I needed to play the role of secretariat and be at the hub instead of being on the field with people, but that role was needed. And I had change agents who were in the field would just come to Impact Hub and just sit on the floor and cry. They just needed a space to be. And they weren't hub members at the time, but for them it was a convening space, a safe space.
For them to just kind of express their share.
And it was just kind of like being present. And I didn't have to be a Joan of Arc in that moment. I just needed to be.
Yeah. Wow, that's powerful. Let's move into the last question, and that is, as you look back at your life so far, and you think about some key life lessons that you would tell your 10-year-old self who wrote that mission statement, what are the things that you would tell her? If you had to say 3 things you'd tell her, what would it be?
I think, and then like this principle of being authentic, being your true self, is rewarding. Like, it's okay. So even in your points of vulnerability, show up in your authentic self. It may not match another person's look of success, but that is your unique contribution.
Right.
And in my case, it paid off. So the fact that even though in one of my worst points of vulnerability around failing, it ended up being a gift to the community, and I ended up like being on covers of magazines, like profiled, so it ended up being like rewarding. Like, it wasn't the intent at the time. So being your authentic self is key. I think, this whole thing about acting in fear. Or
fear is your companion.
Acting despite fear, rather.
Yeah.
Act despite fear. I want to say something around voice, so I would say find a way that's comfortable to you to have your voice heard. And not everybody is courageous speaking up at a big public platform. Maybe it's writing, maybe it's lobbying. There are various ways, experiment, but make sure that your voice is part of the conversation.
Right, and find a way to include that.
So be authentic, act despite fear, add your voice to the conversation.
Fabulous. So is there anything else that you want to just share with us before we close it down?
Sure. Martha put something on a poster. We love you, Martha. So I am one of 200 participants in the inaugural class of the Obama Leaders Progam, Africa, and 35 of us across the continent, from 15 countries across the African continent, have put out a poetry book.
Oh wow!
Yes. So you can download it. It's on my Instagram page, on my personal Facebook page. My personal Facebook page is Lesley Donna Williams. On my Instagram, Lesley DW, and you can find the link there to download it. It's called A Better World, Hope from Africa.
Ah, fantastic. I didn't know that. Yes. No, that's lovely. Thank you for telling me that. Thank you. So I'll tell you what, I'll put the link when I post this on the episode on the podcast as well. I'll put the link in the show notes.
Basically writing about our vision for a better world.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
What is it?
A Place for Us All by Lesley Donna Williams. Just one stretch, an extended arm seeking rest. It grips an unsteady rock, afraid to come tumbling down. Insecure about needing to descend. Success is the vision, foresight the mission. I frown as I propel myself up. Alas, I have arrived. This ledge feels sturdy, only to discover a confident dancer, tap, tap, tapping away at the edge. I may lose balance, I scream out toward her, not anticipating the state. She turns her face away from me, whispering painfully, "Who gave you permission to rise?" My self-doubt creeps in. I look deep within, logically knowing that this is public space. How can I erase the anxiety raised in questioning my own belonging? There is a place for us all if we share just a small piece of land. The rays of sunshine burgled my room, stealing the night away. I grabbed my smartphone before it let out a tone, screaming across various time zones. You see, while my work is local, it hinges on global. I'm transported into a virtual meeting presenting the best of the best. While technology excites, crossing mental borders with delight. But physical borders and security mobsters tell me that my global village is a really big lie. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the most talented of us all? Exclusion assists fake genius to persist, with several excluded from writing the test. Yet, manifesting the full potential of all is mutually beneficial, creating a place for us all.
So that was a Better World Hope from Africa compilation.
And it was the very first time I recited this.
Here on there. Well, it's been great. We're now at time. We have to exit stage left. Thank you so much for being a guest. Thank you so much for your sharing. I'm excited about, I don't know where this relationship, this connection will go, but I feel like very privileged to have spent this time with you. I really do. And so thank you so much.
Thank you, that's lovely.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
I hope that you've been inspired to shift gears in your own life. What an interview. What an interview, and a poem at the end to boot. I want to thank Martha for making the connection between me and Lesley, and for our time together at the Eaton workshop as well. You heard, what I didn't say, of course, is that you also heard Martha in the interview as well at times, and it was just a fantastic evening together, a couple of hours together, and then we went on to listen to some jazz actually up on the rooftop bar and have some food, and it was just the evening continued. It was just fantastic, absolutely fantastic. So lots of food for thought in our conversations, and quite broadly as well. I'm just curious to hear what you got from this episode. I am, whenever I'm at the Eaton, I might go Eaton live again, because it was such a cool experience. I might go live on Facebook with an interview, see if I can pull that together in my schedule. And if you love the show, if you're enjoying the show, please do two things for me. First thing, share the show with as many people as you know who would benefit from the show, who would love the show. Second thing is rate and review the show on iTunes, and let me know, let everyone know what you're getting from the show and what you experience from the show. And there's a third thing actually, subscribe as well to make sure that you get the new episodes coming into your inbox. I have loved this episode. I appreciate you all for listening. And a big shout out to the people so now I'm bumping into people who are listeners of the show. And in fact, actually, at Eaton, when we were trying to figure it out, organize the interview, I met one of my listeners, and I love that when people come up to me and say they're listeners of the show. I appreciate it so much, and that when you share what you're getting and it's what I intend, it moves me no end. So please, please, please keep sharing the show. Keep listening to the show. And if you need to get in contact with me, if you want to get in contact with me, you can contact me on my Instagram. You can DM me there at Shirley McAlpine. Or you can get me through my website, shirleymcalpine.com. Go to the contact me page and you can find me there. Thank you so much for listening. Oh, She's Got Drive is produced by Cassandra Voltalina. The music is by the awesome all-female band Blonde. The song is called Circles. Thank you so much for listening. Go well and stay well.